glad that everyone's here today, and we're talking about a really big industry challenge that has really been here for decades, right? And I was really excited for this session with Ray on really managing joint pipeline with partners in order to drive revenue. And Ray, did you want to introduce yourself and give a quick background on your role at SAP?
Sure thing, Andrew. So again, thanks for the opportunity to be here. And I was at the first meeting as well, so I think the discussion is very fruitful, isn't it? It's kind of a interesting time and space. And I like where this company's playing in this whole market as well. Business development at SAP, there's multiple business development roles in the company, from in the field, working on strategic accounts, going out selling major OEMs. Business development has many hats. My particular role within that context is building new initiatives with the existing strategic partners. So basically I focus on the top 8 to 10 partners. What do they have? What do we have? What can we put together and take to market together? Traditionally, that's been our software, their service. Our software, their technology, hardware generally. But now all these different partners are building their own IP as well. Everybody's got a software division now. So now the question becomes, our traditional software, our platform, our cloud, their IP, right? You start looking at all the combinations and permutations. Then the question becomes, how do you go to market? You have a great solution, but it's got to fit within the context of the sales bag owners and all the different sales forces that are out there. So I'm kind of in the role of, what is it we can do and what's going to fit, and then how do we execute that into the field? That's kind of the place where I play. And I'm at the global level, and then it's got to, of course, get to the people that actually do the selling. So there's a little outreach challenge to that as well.
Absolutely, Ray. Absolutely. And SAP has just been really incredible at joint selling with partners. And can you talk to us a little bit about what that process looks like for SAP? What does that mean for SAP when you talk about this notion of joint selling with partners?
Well, I think we've done a pretty good job over the years. We've had our approach to the market is we want to be the technology provider for number one, software technology provider. We leave plenty of space in the ecosystem for other people to add their value around us. We don't try to go vertical. We stay within our stack, so to speak. So our relationship, you can run SAP on Google Enterprise Cloud, Amazon, Azure, right? You can put it on the SAP Cloud. So we're customer choice number one. So that leaves room for lots of players. So by nature, our DNA tips its hat to the ecosystem. Then, of course, we've got partners that have built practices around SAP over the years. These are multi-billion-dollar businesses within large companies. So there's an active engagement with all big technology providers, right? But our particular approach to market of choice and customer choice, I think, leaves them quite a bit more room than some of the others. So it's a different brand, if you will, in the market.
Now, can you talk about some of the programs and initiatives SAP is putting in place to really, make it easy to do business with SAP?
It's so nice hearing easy to do business. I appreciate that. SAP, if you look at SAP over the last 10 years, it's dramatically different. I was with SAP early, left for a couple years and came back. I've been back now just over 10 years. And the rate at which SAP has moved into the cloud business, we've moved into the SaaS business, we've moved into such a changing dynamic business than what we used to be. We've had to do business differently, right? These cloud companies, they operate at different clock speeds than the old SAP, right? So number one, we want to keep them operating at that speed, and we've been learning to operate at a bigger speed. Plus, we've gone through our own transformation in products and technology, which every technology company does, right? But now as we kind of go forward, what we're trying to do now, the way we're trying to change the game, is by providing greater transparency to the joint initiatives, what kind of WorkSpan calls the circle of trust. We want to provide more transparency so our partners know exactly that we're measuring what we've agreed to do, number one. We're going to give you transparency to how we're tracking that, right? And we all know that what comes with transparency or measurement is management or accountability on both sides. And that's what's changing. That's what we're looking to change, right? Is that these spreadsheets are all about tracking, do we have the same view? Number one, can we get to a same view? And that's what then rolls up for the big QBR, right? Just getting to the same view. Well, if you can operationalize the same view and you have that trust, number one, that'll feed upon itself, that'll grow upon itself. But then that accountability gives the early heads up, whether it's on a deal or on a program, that it's working or not. This idea of course corrections before escalation. Isn't that a concept? Right? I mean, in this world of spreadsheets, and by the time it gets to a QBR, it's like, well, this one's, well, yeah, it's red. You didn't know that? We've aligned the spreadsheets, right? And the year forecast, by the end of the year, we're going to be really in the red, right? Or it's going well, can we throw some more money on this, right? Or should we open up another region that we haven't tapped yet? We're ahead of plan, but let's feed the engine that's running, right? So that's kind of what we're looking to try to do. It's kind of transparency, building trust, that building accountability, and then what do you do with that? Just make better decisions faster. It's something new, but you can't make better decisions faster if you're operating in the dark.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, Ray, I know that for your partners, I mean, there's some of the most well-known global SIs out there. Can you talk to us a little bit more about best practices in managing your joint pipeline with these partners and what that looks like?
Best practice today versus where we want to be. It's always hard calling it best, right? Better. We do a pretty good job. I'd say in the last 3 years, we've done a much better job of actually setting the goals for the initiatives. You know, we may have, with any one of these big partners, we can have all kinds of different lines of business initiatives, and everybody's good. But in what we do with the joint selling initiatives around specific plans, we kind of call this focus revenue with that partner. So we've agreed at the top level, we're going to achieve this globally. It's a number. We're selling that much software. They're building that much service off of those sales by jointly going to market on this. And we've now been focused on sharing that information and diligently tracking that information the old way, right? But doing our best to make sure that that transparency is provided to them. Now, it does do a couple of things. It holds us both accountable, albeit a little bit late in the game, but it actually shows that now what we're committing to supporting them with and how they're going to support us has teeth. That these numbers are now rolling down into the field sales plans. So they're committing to driving so much revenue. So it's not just a global, here, I hear we're corporate doing this, but the field has to buy into it and support it in their sales plans. That's big. And for each one of those partners, you know, they don't always have global names. They don't always have global coverage. You might be able to sell that here. Not sure you could sell that, right, in South Korea. They may not have the skills and resources there. The IP that created that is either here or somewhere else, right? So where are they really ready? So we tick the box in terms of which regions, which countries they can, where do they have skills and competencies? Let's be honest, where do we have skills and competencies? Because a lot of our technology is new, it's still ramping up. We're keeping it close to home to start it, right? So it's the same idea of how do you start building this engine? I think we're doing much better at that. I think we have established certainly trust and much greater credibility than we used to have. And now we're kind of looking at how do we take that to the next step.
Got it. Now, when you're activating the field and you're making sure that the field is engaged, can you talk about maybe some of the challenges that you faced in making that happen and what that looks like for you?
Absolutely. Yeah. Let me see, it's a long list, right? We all know how long that list is. But if you really prioritize it, number one, is their field and our field even aware of it? Right? Have we really done the outreach at the sales management level, both companies, the country or market unit or regional level, to get the buy-in? Number one. Once you've had that, the whole topic of enabling, are their teams aware of not only what it is, but how to engage? What are the rules of engagement? Right? One of my biggest partners is having an event out here. They've got some of the best solutions. We've got a large plan in the place to put them for this year. And 150 of their top client partner managers, they're client managers, don't even know about it. They asked us if we could update them on what they're doing. I'm like, okay, dial back up to who bought off on this. Let's have them bring their own team in to educate their own people. Because they they're doing this like we are. They're learning and growing, right? They have their old practices, their old tools, hook and by crook, right? And now you're trying to institutionalize things. Once you try to institutionalize things, it takes a different level of effort, different caliber of effort, different set of tools to support that. And that's kind of where we are. So it's country level sales buy-in, number one, enablement and training, number two, right? And then you've got the whole rules of engagement. Aware, enabled, and how to engage. Those are the top. That's how I would, I'm open, that's a great part of the discussion, but that's how I prioritize the top three. Certainly where I've been the greatest challenge.
Great. Now, Ray, when you're managing your joint pipeline with partners, can you talk about what that looks like and how you're forecasting these numbers that you're going to bring in as well?
So absolutely, we built tools to track it. So we track it. Our teams and their teams will do the typical alliance call. We'll come up with pipeline. We'll agree upon which ones are in pipeline, and we do have a steady state view of that, and we share that with them. We share it internally, so it's forecastable. We are measured to our targets on how much revenue we bring in with those. So our own people are paid on it. Our people in the field that work those different relationships are paid on it. So alignment of an HR metrics, or however you're paid, whether it's commissioned on the deal or MBO'd or KPI'd on the joint initiative, that has to be in place. And we report back on all of that. And we've done that really for the last, started this 3 years ago, I'd say in the last 2 years. It's gotten fairly strong. It's certainly gotten recognized by management that now it's predictable, that now they give us growth targets, right? So I would say it's still early, but it's picking up a lot of momentum, which is, I think, for all of us in that space, it's positive.
Got it. Now, when you're working with your partners, typically what we're seeing is that partnerships today can operate in different silos. And you brought up a few really great notions of transparency and accountability. Can you just kind of talk a little bit about what these conversations look like with your partners, and when you're talking about agreeing on mutual goals and what you're going to share with each other? How do those conversations typically go?
The mutual goal part, that's the easier part, because they're motivated because they know you're both going to win. Right? So if you're both going to win, it's a question of who's going to be how aggressive. So the goal setting is probably the easiest thing to do. The kind of getting that goal setting dropped down into different orgs and countries, and for us, lines of business and sales bag owners, right? Think about it, all the tertiary elements that are involved in that. It's very challenging. And to think about it, it's easiest in the big countries. Think about the typical GDP of the global 7, and go beyond that, they don't even know that the initiatives exist. So we were talking about WorkSpan here a few months ago, and I wanted to take a look at WorkSpan's user adoption by country. Because this whole concept of things start at corporate, and then they kind of trickle out. Right? Well, to be honest with you, we all know that most of the good ideas start out there, and somehow they got to corporate, and they became a corporate idea, right? So how do you harness this global intellectual property that you and your partners have out there? And how do you then decide what to productize or what to point together and then what to fund, right? So when you look at the adoption of the countries, the users from country, look at the number of countries that are now participating, that's getting the word out. You can't do that other than with a network effect, right? You have to have that ability to just let somebody out there find out what others are doing that adds material value to their situation. So the way in which they get invited, the hook by which you bring them into their own discovery of value in this partnership is going to be critical for us. But when you get beyond the top 7, most of these countries aren't even participating. They don't have staff and resources. There's a couple people managing a bunch of partners. And now you've got a way to bring them on board so they see exactly what we're doing. Which other countries have plans? Guess what? They know somebody in one of those countries. They were in training with them, they've been on leadership calls with them, they know people. You just haven't had a way to tap into it. So what we're really looking for is that this platform will provide an onboarding place for them to discover what's available. Okay.
Great. Now, before I open up the floor to questions, and I really want to make this into a discussion and get everyone involved, I have one more question. Let's just say you fast forward, 5 years into the future. What will, SAP's, programs look like, and how will your management of joint sales with partners look like? If we just fast forward into the future a little bit.
Okay, let me go 1 or 2 years. Because 5 years from now, I can't even tell you what this is.
Let's go 1 to 2 years.
I think that, number one, I think the number of players involved in contributing value to your sales cycles will continue to grow. I think there's been an increase in the fragmentation, or not fragmentation, but the number of players that can participate in the value stack. From vertical to today, it's dramatically different, right? It's probably closer to where semiconductor technologies used to be probably 10, 15 years ago. All the layers technology and the fab technology and the actual manufacturing technology, there was more players in that, right? So there's been a consolidation there, and we're in that expansion phase now. So I think the ability, and I think this is where it happens in this joint selling mode, is that you've got a cadence and capability that companies can share, and the back ends, different systems become operational versus back end compared to where it is today. So SFA, it's important in terms of your relationship with that customer, but when that relationship is no longer just yours, where does that reside? Right? All of our partners, they say they want to help us in that account. Why? Here's my relationship map. Usually people we know. You don't know them. I want you helping me, right? And by the way, here's my map, and here's my map, and here's my map, right? So this quarterbacking of these deals and figuring out who really has a relationship that can get your deal over the line, because that unlocks the value for everybody else, right? And this is an important thing in all these selling motions. I think I mentioned this earlier. Somebody's driving the deal that's the trigger point that enables everybody else to make their money, right? Something has to trigger it. That person, in our language, wears the coat to get the deal done. So you have to have the engagement model well understood. But those systems that support that, I think, will become much, much more important. I think that's where today you have to find a system that does that. It's too hard today. You talk to any enterprise, any of you guys born to cut, you've all done selling, right? If you've done selling, you've got you're working on your top 3 or 4 deals. You've got everybody that's in that sales cycle across all your different partners. You've got their names and everybody they know. You're cross-checking that with everybody that's involved in your sales cycle directly, or who your coach is telling you is an influencer on the outside. Every time you talk to a partner, you open that folder, right? Quarterbacking is an understatement, right? And that's why in salespeople, the difference between newbies and masters is about a mile wide and a mile deep. So whatever we can do to make that more efficient, more effective, I get caught in that terminology a lot. I'm not actually that interested in the efficient part. I'm really interested in the effective part, right? If it's effective, you'll just use it, it'll become more efficient. If it's just efficient, it means you don't really care about it anyway. It's not that effective. So that's where I think things are really going to change. I think that's going to be interesting from an ecosystem standpoint. I was just talking to a startup this morning, and our ecosystem in this industry, this tech industry, it's ever changing, and it changes more rapidly than most other ecosystems do. We used to talk about supply chains as the big ecosystem, and now it's the demand chain, right? So, but I think that's going to continue to accelerate. I think that's where it's going to be interesting for all of us.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your insights on this. I love how you said there's that one person that's going to drive the deal forward with the partners, that's going to accelerate it, and we really need to define who that person is. That's very, very powerful, very powerful. Great. So I'd love to open up the floor to anyone that has some questions for Ray up here. Anyone? Yes.
So one of the things that I think is probably a challenge for SAP, it certainly is a challenge for integrators, and it's a challenge for enterprises. So all of the interested parties is that we've got this, and we're here at a VC that does Series A financing. We've got this huge ecosystem of innovators, and it's sort of a flood. do you see this as a way of helping you identify that expanded partner universe without necessarily, because the problem is assigning headcount without knowing what the opportunity is doesn't make a lot of sense, and you can be very overpowering in terms of the sort of the established system. So is this also, do you also see this as a way of helping you to engage new partners, maybe smaller partners, to those molecules in the stack?
That's a great point. I think it's something that we've done not that well in the past. We used to, years ago, we had something called an industry value network. I'll go back to early 2000s. And we would identify all the people it needs to actually deliver a solution, an end-to-end solution, because we did a good chunk of it, but the other, you need to consider 80% of the technology or 30% of the value, however you want to look at it. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that takes a bunch of innovative companies to put together. And then you needed a couple partners that actually understood how to make it all work together. So it's your typical SAP, a couple SIs, and 15 or 20 small ISV type companies, right? So that was kind of the model. And when you think of this network map now, when we're working with one of these big SIs, they've got their other ISVs that they work. So they bring that to the network. Talking about who brings what to it, right? We're going to define our joint, which is going to be something we know we can execute. And they know they're going to upsell this into that with those other partners, right? So it is a constructive, supportive cycle. Does that necessarily mean that, is it going to help us bridge to them? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But it certainly invites them to the table via that next step in the network. So you can leverage the network without necessarily having to leverage it directly yourself. And that to me is almost of higher value, right? So we, that's where I hope we get to.
Yeah.
Yes.
So my first question is, what's the reaction from the partner ecosystem? You say, I'd like to use this platform. And how are you, from an adoption perspective, are they apprehensive? And just curious, from a licensing standpoint, do they need to have a license to participate? How does that work?
So that's great. So we've talked, we're going slow. Right, so we picked a couple of partners, a couple of geographies. We're just starting this journey. We had some discussions with them last quarter about this, would you, right, in the validation phase. And we showed them what it would look like. And two of our top partners, just basically the response was, really? Literally. Really? And the really was, you're trusting us with that? Really? That's coming out of our, some of that's coming out of our CRM.
Yeah.
Some of that's coming out of our joint planning, but now you're marrying it and you're sharing that with us. Globally, by region, by country, by the deals that are in pipe that we have. So we've been sharing them that we're working on these deals. Now we're actually showing them a deal that's coming from our CRM. They know what stage it's at now. Right now we're not, Homan has this great term. We're actually using translucency, not transparency. Right? Because from a fiduciary, auditory, and from an audit standpoint, there's certain things you don't want everybody in the world knowing about your numbers going forward. Right? That's forward-looking stuff, right? Yeah. So you have to create something that you're willing to show that's representative enough for them to get value from. Absolutely. So the response was, really? Honestly. And then, how can we get trained? So the response, that's North America. Very strong. They have people. They want people on it. They it's one of those heavily funded environments where they've got staffing engagement, right? So, and we're just starting the outreach into a portion of Europe. So right now we're very small. The second piece is, we just had this discussion because it came up in one of the feedback calls. The partner will have to sign a user agreement. Primarily because they need to get access to it and license that. But also they need to know that any data that they provide to it is their data. And at any point in time, if they want to leave, they can take their data with them. They're not giving us data. We're not giving them data. Right? We're allowing them to use the data in the system for the purpose of our joint collaboration. But at any point in time, we can pull our data out and they could pull their data. Now, right now, we're just going to be loading some of our CRM data. In the future, when I talk about an operational system, I see them loading their CRM data. Because guess what? they're tracking this joint initiative, right? And let's just say that's worth X to them. As I mentioned, based on your question, there's a whole network of companies that are going to bring the next stage of innovation to on top of that. And they're tracking that opportunity in their CRM. But that's not today something we're talking about. In their view, they'll line up all of their line items that they're selling to that company that they will see, but we won't. And that's how you want it, right? And just like we're selling something to that customer with them, we're probably selling something else to that customer with some other partner, and we don't want them to see that. Translucency, right? We'll share with you what is strategic to the initiatives we have in place that we've agreed upon in the countries and the accounts we've agreed to. Nothing beyond that. That's enabling and powerful at the same time. So response has been good. Again, they're not on it yet. They're just kind of in that stage of just coming into it. So we're very early. But
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah.
A follow-on question then. I work at SAP as well. I'm on the success factors side of the house. So just in terms of like selling this from a budgeting standpoint, who internally are you asking for money to support it, and what kind of business case, if any, are you being asked to provide?
So this is interesting. So I did the fundamental research on this last year. How does SAP do business with these partners today, right? And got a bunch of findings. And easy to do business was at the top of the list. So one of the big goals really was, how do we built our business case on basically increasing the deals that we bring into the cycle with a partner based on where they are in the CRM, our sales needs, right? So our whole goal is to accelerate deals in pipeline in the early stages. Because guess what? All of these big partners, they've got their list of accounts. Just like Scott, we were talking about marketing earlier, right? Amit was talking about, they've got their list, we've got our list, and divide the number on the bottom by a smaller number and get bigger return. So in this situation, if they want to go help us bring this initiative to their customers, right? That's a different selling motion than today. We all know what happens at the beginning of the year. Sales guy's got a quota, got a handful list of accounts. Well, I'll put 5 million there, 7 million there, 9 million there, and 3 million there, and I'll throw a couple SKUs at it I think they may buy this year, and now I got to go sell it. Right? That's how you preload a CRM system, right? It's the quality of that pipeline. The guy knows what he's really going to get measured on when you come up with 20 million by the end of the year. It doesn't really matter how he gets it. He's just got to get it, right? Well, so that's sitting out there in CRM. Now you bring in this partner that wants to work with us and develop this opportunity. If it maps to one of those, great. If he's got to move money from here, steal from Peter to pay Paul, so line it up, he will. So we're measuring the early engagement. That's how we fund it. We funded that out of Global GSSP, Global Partner Organization, so under Arlo. And we're running with TAC a program, your Upgraded Success. We're piloting that within this context this quarter. So there was, sorry. I'm going to shut him down.
Okay. Hi. Just wanted to check from your experience, what is the efficacy of this tool for not maybe the top partners, but kind of the longer tail, the ones that don't have so many eyeballs on them. I'm from Cisco and we have a long tail of partners. I'm just wondering what are your experiences in that space?
So this is really a short answer. I think it's fantastic. It's the same way I look at all the other countries that don't have all the staffing.
Mm-hmm.
I think to have a systematic approach to reaching out to folks and a way for them to engage and tap into this system easily, efficiently, with kind of supported workflow and capability is huge. We were first talking about this. I think our opportunity to learn from this and then roll this out to our general business accounts, right, to the smaller VARs and the smaller partners, and it'll apply to all the smaller countries. So I think it's very applicable because it gives them access in a meaningful way without a portal page, right? What do I do with it? How do I make a request? How do I get the approval? Right? They can engage.
It's democratization of everybody, right?
Time zones prohibit so many of that for so many of these guys, right? Because the purse strings are held in certain places. They don't have the relationships. Well, now you've got a tool that will put that through a workflow for you. So I think the potential there is absolutely.
Okay.
So Ray, great update. So are you using kind of the core aspects, from an SAP perspective, the sales, portion, I mean, marketing and joint solution creation?
So within this partner organization, we're rolling out the two right now.
Okay.
The marketing is running in different parts of the organization. What we're taking is the two pieces, which is the joint selling and the creation of the new idea.
Okay.
Right? So
Joint solutions.
joint solutions.
Joint solutions.
Right? So what are they? So if you think about it, when I look at this tool, there's the things we just talked about, but the other big benefit is how do you spin up networks of teams quickly?
Yeah.
Right? So somebody's got an idea. Some partner wants to go do this, right? Okay, great idea. In our language, that means line of business, industry, countries or regions, right? Technology stack, the sales bag, you have to construct the solution, joint solution, right? What are they going to bring? These are the people that have to buy off and approve and support, right? If you're assembling 20 people, how long does that take? An email, right? So now you figure out who it's going to be, what it's going to have to do, right? And you can, we haven't done this yet, we're just starting, right? But that's where I think you get to a much higher degree of effectiveness.
Thank you.
Great. Now we will be shifting to our next session.